Yeah, feel free, guys, to put your questions in the chat, and I'll answer them as we go along. You didn't trade last week? Cool. Yeah, I'm hoping you guys have questions, and always come to the webinar with questions about your journals, journal trades, wins, losses. I thought we'd go through quite a bit of PA today to understand the technicals in a little bit more detail. Even myself, as well as knowing the technicals, I'm really working on just refining my sort of process and not the strategy itself, but just how I see the markets. It's really important that Marco Abed Elijah, I've given a kind of blueprint to the strategy, and it's all about how you can adapt it to make it suit yourself. So yeah, let's get started. So we'll start with the gold market. Okay. So there were a few entries on gold. If we start from the weekly time frame, right. So we took these lows to the left. Okay. And that was the previous week. And then what we did was we then took out that previous weekly low. And so going into this week, you can see how we can have sort of a bullish bias because we've essentially trapped buyers twice, really. Now, if we look at the break of structure, I'm hoping everyone can see it. Okay, it's this break of structure here to the upside. Now, if we look at where that break of structure came from, if we look at the candle to the left, okay, and we just highlight that candle, okay, so you can see that right there. That is a point of liquidity, okay, and I would just have that marked. So on the futures chart, that's 3,926.4. Now, I do think once we come and take these highs, we move lower, back down. I am bearish on gold, okay? However, going into this week, I did have a bullish bias overall. Now, if we dissect it from a day-by-day basis on what's occurred, okay, I'll keep my lines there. We can see how on Monday, okay, we had a bearish day. Tuesday, we spiked those lows and trapped all of these buyers. So you can see these bullish candles. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can see we had that expansion. Okay. Now it was NFP week. So really important on Thursday to note that Wednesday would generally build liquidity for NFP to come and take out. And so we will dissect what happened each day and any possible or potential entries. So if I just mark this out, this is a clear level of liquidity, and you can see why. So okay, nice and simple there. I'm hoping everyone can see that. Okay, we have a build up. Okay, so going into Monday, okay, I would have been looking for shorts. Okay, now if we spend time on the charts, you would be able to see that we are in a liquidity block here. Okay, so that's a liquidity block. Okay, so on Monday when we opened, we moved away from this liquidity block. Remember, in order for us to move higher, okay, we must induce lower. So look what happens here. On Monday, we move away from this LB area, okay, and what do? We essentially, okay, now have liquidity above these highs, okay. because what we did was we tapped into this LB and then we moved away. Now, was there an opportunity to short? Okay. I do think there is one. If I just move this liquidity block along here, where it's not the cleanest liquidity block, but it still, you know, works, where essentially we induced lower and then we came up and we trapped higher, okay, forming this LB, okay. And then what happened was we induced sellers, okay. So you can see how through that break of structure we induced sellers and we came to trap them, okay. Now if you managed to get that, that's Monday during Asia, I believe, okay. That's a potential opportunity to hold the trade all the way down to these lows there, because what we've done here is we formed an LB, we had a build up, we trapped these early sellers, and then price just continued to move down, okay. Now we haven't got another entry on the way down on Monday. We sort of just went to the lows, stabbed the lows, okay. And then since then we moved higher, okay. So that was Monday's price action. I'm hoping we've understood that. Any questions? Any questions at all? All clear? Yeah, so on Monday, it's an LB because we essentially induced sellers and then trapped them. Okay, so we induced sellers and then we trapped them, forming an LB. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, cool. So we'll move on. So we'll go on to so that was Monday. Now on Tuesday, you can see how we've taken that liquidity from the left hand side, okay, and we start to move higher, okay. And to be honest, on Tuesday, I wouldn't say. I mean, there's an entry here. Like, if you look at it, what have we done on the way down? We've basically built liquidity. If I get rid of this tool, I'm hoping we can all see the level of liquidity that I'm talking about. So I'm talking about these highs here. Yeah, everyone can see that level of liquidity. Okay, now on Tuesday, you can see how, because we've trapped those buyers, okay, we can see them move up, okay, and to come and take that level of liquidity. Now, I do think there was an entry here. Let's just have a look. Yeah, there was. So you can see this whole area, why I've put that level as a liquidity level, because we basically broke structure to the downside, came back up to those highs, respected those highs, and then we moved away. So we have liquidity above there. Now, all we're looking for is, look at this move. Look at this move here during London. Okay. Now, all we're looking for is buyers to be trapped. Okay. So what do we do here? We can see how I was waiting for this level to be taken. Okay. Now, why this level here? Okay. Look at where we had this build up. Okay. of buyers during London. Okay, now look how we remained below these lows, these highs, sorry. Okay, so we essentially induced sellers, okay, forming an LB. Okay, this is now an LB, so I can mark that out. So there's my liquidity block. And what do? We stay below these highs. Okay, we break structure, forming our inducement low. Okay, so notice where sellers were induced from these highs. We broke higher and then we came back and we took that inducement low. Now that is an entry, and you would have covered your SL below that liquidity block, and therefore we can take that entry, maybe partial, okay, at a 1 to 3, and then take it to those highs. And that is the only trade, okay, I would have taken on Tuesday. Okay, so that was basically Tuesday's price action. Now, if we look at it from a higher time frame, what have we basically done? Look at where we are. Okay, we induced sellers and we've now trapped them. So you can see a move down. But overall, okay, because we've taken that liquidity from the left, we have a higher time frame target. So even though we have trapped those sellers, those moves would be short-lived. Okay, so that was basically the trade on Tuesday. Now on Wednesday, okay, you can see how we start to just build liquidity. So let's go and have a look. Now look at what we're doing basically on Wednesday. So remember what I said, Thursday was NFP. So typically on a Wednesday, you won't see that clean price action. What we've basically built here is just liquidity. Okay. So on Wednesday, gold just built liquidity. Okay. And on Thursday, okay, what we've basically done is we have a higher time frame target. Okay, look at where this reaction has come from. If we zoom all the way out to the left, okay, look at where this reaction has come from. So if we just zoom in, okay, you've got all of these highs to the left. So I would just have taken those highs, okay, and what do? So on Thursday, okay, we have buyers getting into the market. Okay, we've induced sellers by taking this low. So induced sellers, and I mean, this is really risky. I do think Elijah took this. This was before NFP, but you can clearly see this level of liquidity at the lows. Okay, so the way I see it, buyers induced. Okay, buyers trapped. So that is now your LB. Okay, and then look at how we stayed below these highs. Okay, we induce higher, so we induce buyers, and then we trap them. Okay, that's our entry model. I mean, I would never take a trade before NFP, but this is a trade you could have taken if you were. And then I would have just targeted that liquidity that we was talking about to the left. And that was on Thursday. So that was gold. Now that we've taken these highs, okay, any buys would be low probability. So look, we've taken these highs to the left. However, we do have these highs still above. Okay, so these highs there. So I can see gold essentially moving higher. But remember what I said, okay? We have an LB. So I can see gold maybe move higher and then come back down to these lows. Now I won't be catching any extremes here, but I will be looking for confirmations. And this could be a nice swing down to the lows, 3926.4. And that was pretty much it from a gold market perspective, you know, from last week. So one trade maybe on Monday you could have held to the lows, Tuesday buys and Wednesday buys, Thursday buys. And then obviously Friday was a bank holiday, so you wouldn't have even touched the charts. Any questions on gold? Yeah, I'm hoping that was pretty simple. Any questions? Anyone want me to clarify anything on gold? No questions? Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll move on to NQ. Those are pretty much the two pairs that I look at, and then I'll open it up to any pairs you guys want me to go through. Okay. All right, cool. So let's look at NQ. We'll look at it from the daily time frame. So as you can see, we induced sellers, okay, in the market, and we have basically built liquidity to all-time highs. Okay, now if you look at where this bullish reaction has come from, and it took this inducement high, if you look all the way back and highlight that candle, okay, which basically broke structure to the upside, you know, this is just my opinion here. We have liquidity at 28021.25. Now, well, after we took those highs, we came and we took these lows, okay? So I'll mark that out. And then we took this high, and then we came and took these lows, forming an LB, okay? So this is just off the daily time frame. So if you look at what we did on Monday, we basically, after trapping buyers, had this on the open, literally bullish move up on Monday, Tuesday. We then tap into this LB on Wednesday, okay, and we sell off, okay. Now we're going to look at this sell off. Now I myself was bullish as anything on NQ. I thought we would reach all-time highs this week and then sell off from there. But obviously, you know, we can just analyze and predict. The market can do what it wants. So if we look at it, okay. So I did say here is a but let me just reform that. So here is an LB, okay. Now that is the previous weekly low. I'll highlight that because we have liquidity there, okay. Now at first I did want those lows to go. On reflection, this was really clean because we induced sellers, okay, and then we built liquidity at these highs. So this whole area, we built liquidity. Now on the open, what we did was we induced higher through this break or structure. So if you think about this candle here, we open, we form a high, so we break structure to the upside, inducing buyers, and then we have that low. And what do? We trap all of these buyers on Monday, okay, and we stab into an LB area, okay. If you got in once this liquidity was taken, covered the stops, you managed to get in on a CFD, I would have been holding that all the way to all-time highs. Now if you was on a futures prop, okay, look at where we built that liquidity, okay. I would have just held it to this high, okay, and that was Monday. Nice bullish move off the open, okay, and then we trapped these early buyers and moved higher, okay. So that was on Monday. And then now that we've taken these highs from the left, okay, what do we want to see in order to move higher? We want to see a build up, buyers being induced, buyers being trapped, and then, you know, we can enter again. Now we have a lot of liquidity at these highs. So what do we do on Tuesday? Let's zoom in. So on Tuesday, we induce higher. Always take note, we've taken these highs from the left. We break higher, we respect, and then we have this BOS back up to the upside. So what do we have in this whole area? We've basically built liquidity. So in order for me to even think about taking a trade on Tuesday, I need to see these lows taken. But you can see how these lows were not taken. We essentially respected this area and then we just moved higher, okay. Now what do we come into? Okay, we come into an LB. So this whole area is a liquidity block. So we come into this area on Tuesday. This is the PM session, and we start to move away. Now, if your bias was bearish at these lows, so this liquidity that we've built up, that would have been a perfect entry to take on a CFD. LB above, but I was very bullish. And then what you would have waited for on Wednesday, and this is clean as anything. On Wednesday, okay, what do? We start to sell off, we trap, we form an LB. This whole area is an LB. Man, it doesn't get cleaner than this. So that was Wednesday, okay. Now Thursday, so NFP, we on that day we start to sell off, and we come and we take out all of those sellers, those early sellers, forming another LB, okay. I don't even need to go lower to take this trade. Watch this. This is now an LB on a higher time frame. On NFP, we induce higher. Notice how we've just been inducing from Asia. the next 10 a.m. candle opens, okay, so EST 10 a.m. spikes the previous 4-hour high, and then we just have this massive sell-off. I mean, that would have been your trade if you were bearish. And where would you target? Okay, look at where this bullish move came from. I would take that whole candle, so this candle here, we tapped into that candle and we broke structure to the upside. So that's where my exit would be. I'm not trying to catch that whole move. If you were, you would have partialed heavily at these lows and then held the rest to target. So what are we doing here on Friday? Again, just a bank holiday. Look at what we're reacting from. We're reacting from this LB area, this support. We're just inducing buyers again. Now, what do I want to see? I want to see price at least take out these sellers. So maybe have that move higher, and then I'd be shorting to these lows. I do think these lows need to go now before we move higher. However, when I was analyzing this over the weekend, I don't know, something's telling me that we might even see these lows. I don't know, maybe we see the highs first. So we'll react to PA. We'll see what happens with NQ. Any questions on that, guys? Crystal clean. I'll answer everyone's questions, don't worry. When we have a bullish LB and price tapped, it induces buyers. Yes, correct. This means liquidity is now below. Yeah, once we tap into an LB and move away, would the LB at 30,700 be considered an inducement high? Would the 30,700, 30,700. Yes, that is an inducement high. Yeah, but remember, this is an LB, Vicky. So this is an LB. You won't see it just go and trade through that inducement high. Think about what we want to do here. We want to induce sellers and build that liquidity. There's no liquidity at that inducement high yet, so we respect it, move away. Now we have liquidity at 30,700. I'll get confused on an entry sometimes for a move on NQ to the downside. I'm understanding to wait for LB to form, then a build up, then formation of an inducement low and a high, then wait for inducement low to be taken. That is, just want to be sure. Yeah, that's correct. That is correct, Mike. It's very simple. I'll draw a diagram to go through the entry model in a second. I trade NY and London, but on indices, just NY. Yeah, if you're bearish, that entry on Tuesday is valid. Yeah, Hardick. Your name is actually so funny. No offense, but yeah, go on. Sure. Why didn't price sweep this yellow box? Are you on gold? We're just sticking with NQ for now. I'll come back to gold. I did give everyone a chance to ask about gold. Just on NQ, guys, for now. Any questions? Any questions? Here then, on the LB that you marked on for Monday morning, can you mark on the chart which low and which high are you looking at to qualify it as an LB? Some LBs are very clear for me, but some are hard for me. Yeah, sure. That LB on Monday, if I even just go down to the 5 minute, whatever time frame is clear for you guys, to be fair. If I just zoom in, you can even refine this down. You see how it induces these buyers. So if you look at my chart here, you see how from this low to this high we induced buyers and then we trapped them. So if I just mark that out, see how we trapped them. That basically that whole area. So a liquidity block isn't just a candle, it's a zone. Okay, so what we're basically saying is now that we've trapped participants, you shouldn't see liquidity below here yet. But as soon as we start to tap into these areas, okay, just because we've tapped into it and moved away doesn't mean we have liquidity all the way below here. Okay, what we basically do is inducing buyers from that area. We come and trap them. That is our entry. Okay, that is why the LB on, like, for example, the hour, if I go to the hourly on that Monday, see how it looks slightly different. Okay, that just comes with experience. You'll be able to see on the higher time frame what it looks like on the lower. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. The Tuesday long, Adam, on an NQ, not the short. The Tuesday long, there is no Tuesday long. That's not a long I'd take on Tuesday. That we're just respecting liquidity there. Nah, no way. No way. I was longing NQ on Friday, took a loss. Friday? On a bank holiday, you're trading NQ? Yeah, no way. Yes, just because some members take it doesn't mean that it's valid. Yeah, just a FYI. Just trade what you think is correct, not what. If you see people in the community taking trades, it doesn't mean it's correct. Okay, it doesn't mean it was correct. Darius, I'll come back to gold. Any other questions we want to dissect on NQ? Oh, on Thursday. On Thursday. Yeah. Saji, look at what we did before. That's a very good question. So you marked that out as an LB. Let's look at what we did before that on Thursday. Was that Thursday you said? Yeah, Thursday. So I can see what trade you've taken. So this is the trade you've taken. So you can see that if I just clear in fact, I'll clear all my charts. So you've marked this out as a liquidity block, okay? I can see why you've marked that out as a liquidity block. Okay, so if we take the high to the low, so you're basically hoping we respect that. But if you look at what we did, I'll just go all the way. You see how we tap into it, yeah, and we have this breaker structure to the upside. Yeah, do you see that? We now have liquidity below here, so you would have to go BE. You would have to go BE once that high was taken, and you can see how the market comes and takes that liquidity and then moves away. Okay, so anytime you see that inducement before once it taps into your LB, you have to kind of go BE here. Okay, because the market, you can see the market has a lot of liquidity still below. Okay, there you got all these lows. The market can come all the way down to this extreme and respect it. Okay, I would have covered my SL. That's a very small SL. I would have covered the whole liquidity block. Remember, we're in a big liquidity block. Yeah, I'm hoping that makes sense. Yeah, no worries. Daily bias. You need to watch the liquidity tracking video that Marco has done. I believe he's done three parts to that. And also you need to go through the case studies. You know, daily bias will come with experience for sure. Any other questions? Can you show us how you set up that blue and red line to identify the LBs? The blue and red line? Blue and red line. Wait. Oh, the GAN box. Oh yeah, I'll put it in the chat. It's just I'm just testing something. That's why my liquidity blocks look all colorful. I'm just testing that 50% level. That's all. Just collecting data on that. Cool. You want me to check this entry? Yeah, there's no way that's not an entry, Darius. No way. We've induced buyers from the left. Look how we broke structure to the upside, left all these lows. No, I haven't answered this. High time frame liquidity up. Sometimes pricing induces and then moves low to trap, and sometimes pricing moves low. Is it because we have liquidity? Yeah, you have to look at the build up, Conquer. You have to look at the build up. Yeah, I'm gonna go over the entry model. Don't worry, I'm gonna go over the entry model. Even though I'm sure Abid goes through it in the course quite in depth, but I'll go through the entry model. Yeah, the entry model is pretty simple, to be honest. Yeah, feel free to ask your questions. Any other pairs you guys want me to look at? BTC? Yeah, sure. I'll look at BTC in a second. BTC was bullish this week, I believe. You know what? Let me go through the entry model so we're all on the same page with entries. So with entries, okay, let's just say we've taken liquidity from the left. So I'll just mark that out. So we've taken liquidity from the left. In fact, let me just mark that out as liquidity. All right, cool. So what do we basically want to see? Okay. Once we've taken liquidity from the left, the inducement high, so the high that took out that low, okay, you want to basically see, and what's going to happen is you're going to get a build up of early buyers. These are people trying to catch a reversal, okay, whether that comes in the form of a trend line, okay, or you know, equal lows, etc. As long as we respect that inducement high, okay, and we come and trap them or take some internal, okay, you've now formed another LB. And then I'll just show you guys something. Hold on. Okay, so let's mark this out as, I'm just gonna write inducement high. Okay, so what's the logic behind there? So we've induced sellers. We know we've induced sellers through this break of structure. Now, what does that do? We've basically took out these early buyers. In fact, let me just bring this a bit lower. Okay. Now, this is an LB. If this LB is clean to you, you can take a direct entry, okay? Because after we've trapped these early buyers, okay? If this is, you know, not an extreme you want to take and there's an LB to the left, you can wait for buyers to be induced, trap them. There's your confirmation entry. Now, sometimes what price does is the same thing again. Because we've induced sellers again, you wait for buyers to come in. It's like a double confirmation, because now what you've basically done is you've trapped buyers yet again. Okay. And there's your two. So if I mark this out as a highlight tool, there's one entry, there's your second. That's all the entry model is. That's all I follow. Just keep it simple. Though you don't want 100 patterns, 5 patterns. Just stick to one model that you want to follow and you understand and you get data on. Okay? That's it. Yeah, that's it. I've gone through this like 100 times with an LB. An LB is literally where we've induced buyers, trapped them. That's a bullish LB. A bearish LB, we induce sellers, trap them. Okay? I'll go through some chart examples in a second of LBs that we can use. Okay? Okay, cool. Let's go to BTC. Let's go to BTC. So I'll try to answer some of your questions using Bitcoin. So yeah, I'll try to answer your questions. So okay, let's just look at it. So let's say I was approaching a chart from a blank and I want to determine my daily bias. Okay, on the weekly time frame, I'll look at where we are, okay, currently. So I'll look to the left and I'll look at, okay, we were bullish. Okay, we had this bullish move up, so I can mark that out here. We had that bullish move up. Where did that bullish move up come from? You can see these candles to the left. So this candle here is why we broke structure to the upside. And then we come and we take that liquidity. Okay. So once we've taken that liquidity, the week opens up. And we take out previous weekly low, inducing more sellers. Okay. So straight away, I've now formed my bias. We've trapped buyers, taken out previous weekly low. Okay. I'm now going to look at how we respected these highs. 67,264 is my higher time frame target. Now let's look at the daily. Can the daily confirm this for me? Well, it looks like we've got a build up of liquidity. What is a build up? A build up is where we have essentially respected liquidity. We respected a high or a low and we moved away. Look how we respected this high and we broke structure to the downside. We came back up, respected that area again. Okay. And then we moved away. So after now, if we look at this from a zoomed in perspective, okay, I'll just keep these chart lines on here. Okay. Where do I now look at LBs? Okay. So let's look at it from a breakdown from the open. Okay. So we opened up. Look at where we induced sellers. So look at where these break of structures are kind of happening, right? And then we come and all the way up and take out a high. So remember what I said. Any time we've induced sellers and then trapped them, and what I like to see is, you know, a break of structure before we take out that high as well. Makes it even more high probability. We form this LB, okay? Everyone understand what I mean by liquidity block now. If I highlight this whole candle, okay, we now form an LB, okay? Now, once we form that LB, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a build-up of early sellers. Look, so we break structure to the downside, we respect this area, we move away. Look at how we have that breaker structure, and then we come up and we trap them. I would have taken that as an entry Monday 1 p.m. And what am I targeting? I'm always targeting that build-up or engineered liquidity. So this is just me looking at BTC from a fresh point of view. And there we go. It played out. Now, obviously, it doesn't play out 100% of the time. I'd be a multi-billionaire, you know, but our strategy has an edge. The edge plays out in the market. Once you've backtested and collected data on your entry and your edge, you'll be more confident. If you take a loss, you won't revenge trade. Why? Because you know over a series of trades, maybe that's 50 or 100, you know that you are in profit, okay? Your win rate is high. So your confidence is there to take the trades. If your confidence isn't there, it means you haven't collected enough data. But yeah, that's Monday. Then what happens? Look, because we induced buyers and now trapped them, we formed this LB. Again, like you can find these left, right, center. I'll take the whole candle, okay, as an LB. Do we induce and trap into this LB? Let's have a look. So we induce buyers, trap them. Could have possibly taken this. I mean, it's not the cleanest. That would have been a higher time frame entry, to be honest. I would have longed here 100%. Covered my stops. What would I target in this case? Look at where this build-up is. Does it meet a 1 to 3? Yeah. There you go. Okay. It's on Wednesday. Yeah. And then we essentially come up. And what are we coming for? Look at this, okay? Watch this. We induced lower and then we moved higher. So I can show that, look. Okay. So induced lower. Came up, took that high. Formed an LB. Now, watch this. Why is this LB not going to work? Someone tell me in the chat. Why is this LB here not going to work? Why have we basically nearly ran through it? Someone tell me in the chat. Direction is bullish. Thank you. Higher time frame liquidity has been taken and we're moving higher. Look at all that liquidity above. Why would price, okay, respect? Why would you take a trade here basically? It can respect it and move away, but that just gives us another entry opportunity to move higher. Look at all this liquidity above. Look at this trend line. I mean, you can see it as a trend line if you want. Yeah, you got to be mindful of these things, okay? This is not a place where you take an entry. You're basically respecting this trend line. Yeah, so that is why, okay, yeah, thank you. Previous weekly low taken, previous weekly high. Liquidity to liquidity, okay? So that is how you approach the charts. You cannot just approach the charts with an entry model. You're going to get wrecked in this market. You're going to get wrecked in this market. How far back in time do you go? As far back as you can. I've tested this strategy thoroughly. Try to start by doing over 100 trades. Yeah. So is everyone okay with that? I'm hoping I've clarified. I'm hoping I've clarified like build-ups, liquidity blocks. What else was it? Entry model. You're gonna have to message Marco or Abid about the blueprint bootcamp. Any other pairs you guys want me to look at? We can focus on a pair. What invalidates a LB? If we respected it and moved away, so we now have liquidity above there, that I wouldn't count that as an LB. Yeah, we finished with NQ. This is BTC today. Why hasn't liquidity been... Well, we haven't tapped. I don't think we've tapped into the BTC today on the 15. You're just chasing price, my friend. Can't be trying to take trades here. We've just taken these highs. Come on, let's use logic, not patterns. Okay. Yeah, sometimes the market does respect and move away. GJ. Oh, don't tell me about GJ. I took a loss on GJ. Yeah, let's go through GJ. So, all right, cool. Let's look at GJ. So, we're at all-time highs basically. Okay. Look at this liquidity that it's just been leaving. Basically, my bias was bearish because of these lows. We broke structure to the upside. Okay. Now we are coming into. Someone tell me, what is this that I'm circling here? What are we coming into? Someone tell me. An LB. Perfect. All right, we're getting somewhere. Yeah, let's highlight that. We're coming into this LB. Now, can everyone see the trap into that LB? So look, we've been tapping into this area. Sorry guys, my battery was low. So we're coming into this area. Let me just put my charger back on. Yeah, so we're coming into this area. Yeah, we've induced sellers from it, and we've now come and trapped them. Okay. So I was looking to sell. Okay. And if we look at the 4 hour, I was basically an early seller, if you think about it. So this is what I tried to do. I'll show you my loss. I'm hoping we can see this LB beforehand. Okay. Yeah, so this LB here. I'll highlight it. I tried to take this direct entry. One second. Yeah, so I tried to take this direct entry basically, targeting these lows. And what did price have in mind? It had all this liquidity above, which I ignored. And I can make these mistakes too. You know, it looked clean to me. You know, we induced sellers. So remember what I said. I want to always see. Apologies if my screen's lagging a little bit. I've just put my laptop on charge. So we've induced sellers, and then basically we came and trapped them. That's what kind of gave me confidence to take that trade. And you know, it doesn't always work out. You know, it doesn't always work out. And that's basically the trade that I took on GJ. But now you can see how it's starting to have its move. Hopefully, anyway. Yeah, that was GJ basically. I'm still bearish on GJ. Cool. That's pretty much it. Any other questions? Nah, just London, 8 a.m. GMT. So that's what, 3 a.m. 3 a.m. EST to about 11. So what's that? 11, 6, 3 to 6 a.m. EST. I appreciate you, Daniel. Thank you. I like the feedback. Feel free to leave some feedback, man. If price respect the highs and came back to the inducement low, a nice long can appear. Yeah, that looks quite good. That does look quite good. Conquer. Are inducement high or low defined as the move, the high or low that does BOS or take out a low or high? No, it's the. I'll go through that in a second. Do you trade Mondays? No, not really. I try to see what the market does on Monday. If I see something clean, I'll take it. But my data just shows me I don't take W's on Monday as much. So an inducement high or low. So if you look at this, Mike, you see how we come into an area or where we induce. So that's what you would say the inducement high. So the high, yeah. So that's basically where buyers were induced from. So the high that took the low is what we call